It is Friday, September 6th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. That is Justin Penik. That is Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. It is all brought to you by Captain Morgan's, the official spiced rum of the NFL. We are here to get you all set for week one of the NFL season, which, of course, got jump-started at the home of the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday night. We needed the full 60 to decide this one. Chiefs 27, Ravens 20, Isaiah Likely catching what could have been a touchdown to get them within one, and John Harbaugh was saying we're going for two. However, his toe was out of the end zone as time expired. What an opening night we had, Bobby.
I was so excited for the two-point conversion where either John Harbaugh is like, man, this guy's a genius, or if they didn't make it, everyone's calling him an idiot tomorrow. I was so excited to have that battle back on our timeline. For the first down, and I'm excited to do all the previews in this game. Yeah, that was a great opening game, and I think we learned a good amount from both of these teams, right? On questions we had on how different they would be from last year. Ravens a little more negatively so. The Chiefs on how they're going to use a guy like Xavier Worthy. I think we learned a decent amount on these two teams, positive and negative. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs are the better team. Yeah. They were the better team going in and the better team coming out, and they, start their two-time title defense 1-0.
I'm just really glad that this game was close because, Chris, I don't know about you, I got the impression throughout the entire game that I'm like, I can't believe how close this is because it felt like the Chiefs just controlled the entire game. I'm glad that it came down to the end, and hey, I love my analytics. Like I was keeping up with the win probability because I'm like, it feels like the Chiefs are in control of this game, but it's kind of crazy how this is a 1-score game, a 3-point game, a 10-point game. Like the Ravens were still in it. There was a point where the Chiefs, even though the Ravens had the ball, they were driving down the field. There was still like a 90-some% win probability that they had. Really glad that we got that intense ending and that insane ending, but it did feel like the Chiefs did control that from start to finish. Rose, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, listen, they had the turnover by Lamar that got them in the red zone. They got 3. Then the Ravens didn't convert at midfield on the 4th down, and still the Chiefs didn't run away with it. They didn't get touchdowns either times. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, with Lamar, they're going to stay right in this thing. Obviously, people are going to get on Lamar for not hitting Zay Flowers, yeah. Sorry, on the play right before Isaiah Likely. And that's the one that's going to stick with him. But listen, this is the way Bills fans, I hope they watched Thursday's game very closely, because this is the thing I worry about that we're going to see with Josh Allen. He's going to have to do everything. That's what Lamar Jackson had to do on Thursday night. There was no help elsewhere. Derrick Henry carried the ball, 11 times, 13 times maybe? But there wasn't any big, 13 for 46. There wasn't any big, let's lean on him, let's get Derrick Henry going. It was all, let's let Lamar do everything. He had to run for more than 100 yards, had to throw for nearly 300, had to make a couple of crazy plays. And that's not an offense.
Yeah, it's going to have to be hero ball for them all year.
And you know what's crazy? Lamar didn't have a great game, but kept them in this football game against the two-time defending Super Bowl champions. That's the crazy thing.
Played pretty well.
I thought this was a really good game for Lamar. We'll talk about
almost a -10 CPOE on an average depth of target that was very
Penik,
low. Sorry,
nobody is sitting at home saying a -10 CP. They're watching the game and they're saying that dude just ran for 120 yards. He made an amazing play to get the ball down to Rashad Bateman.
I agree.
Had Isaiah Likely over 100 receiving yards.
But I also want to I want to make clear that I think Lamar had a great game to keep the Ravens in the game.
Right.
But still, it wasn't Lamar's best of games. I mean, they were 3 for 10 on passes of 15+ air yards, which, Chris, that's where I think that you're going to really see the issues of. You're going to see the issues of the offensive line, which we're going to talk about. We're going to break down a little bit. But then the Chiefs have a very good secondary, so I kind of maybe want to see it against an opponent that's not the Chiefs, and Steve Spags has done a great job since last year of preventing those big plays. But you saw Bateman have a nice catch at the end of the game, Isaiah Likely, flat. Are you really going to have a team? And now that, Odell was kind of this guy for them last year, how are you going to have guys that are going to go down and get the ball deep down the field to get those big explosive plays? Bobby, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I feel like Lamar played, that offensive, this is the issue with the Ravens, right? is the guys they lost on that offensive line. Losing Kevin Zeitler and John Simpson and Morgan Moses, I feel like all of those positions came back to bite him, especially on the right side of that line with Daniel Falele, Bakari, or Patrick McCarry, and then they put the rookie Rosengarten in there. He gave a sack his first play against Chris Jones.
And then McCarry came back in.
What gave me confidence in this game in the Chiefs was that Chris Jones was going to dominate, and he only had the one sack, but he had 5 other pressures in this game.
You felt his presence.
You felt his presence. Karlaftis was getting there. Even the linebacker Leo Chanel was getting pass rush. You felt like Lamar was under pressure all game, but at the end of the day, he only had one sack. Now that turned into a fumble, which has been a long-lasting issue with Lamar, and he only got kid on another throw. So he did a great job of avoiding the pass rush that was consistently there. And Isaiah Likely just had over 100 receiving yards in this game, right? We got a conversation about him.
No one saw that.
It feels like their normal drop back passing is going to be force feeding Zay Flowers because they don't have. But yeah, I think Lamar played really well. And again, we'll talk about those throw to Zay Flowers, and it'll be debated whether Zay Flowers should have stopped and sat down or not. But there's not very many QBs who are keeping that Ravens team in this game.
No.
Really, it's just him, Mahomes, and maybe Allen, right? Most other QBs are just not in this game.
So let's look real quickly at the last 2 times they've played the Chiefs. AFC Championship game, Todd Monken forgot that you're allowed to hand the ball in a running situation.
And let Lamar run too.
Right. And so here on Thursday night, they cannot get the ball downfield with the exception of letting Lamar make a play, roll out of the pocket, and pray that somebody comes down with it.
Yep.
That is not an offense. This is not something long-term that will help them be successful at all. It's just not. And I don't know if there's a rule in Baltimore that you're not allowed to have 2 good wide receivers on your roster at the same time. But that's sure as hell what it looks like to me.
Yeah, Bateman for the majority of the game, besides the fourth quarter, felt like he was getting good cardio in.
And here's the other thing with the Ravens, and people will say, hey, they were very close to winning this game against the defending champs. But I do think that these issues are going to pop up, and it's going to make it hard for them to be an AFC champion, right? To get through a playoffs dealing with this type of stuff consistently, I just think it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah. It will get better when you're not playing the Kansas City Chiefs. But
they're going to make the playoffs. Lamar's going to have a great year.
Right. But where the ceiling of this Baltimore Ravens team, and that's why when we talk about the Ravens, we talked about them on their TPP, and also, hey, if you're a new audience member, welcome. But one of the things that we were talking about that we were worried about is the offensive line, and just really emphasizing that last year was their year because of the talent that they had and knowing that they were going to lose people. They did lose 3 starters on the offensive line. They did lose starters on the defensive side of the ball. They did lose coaching as well. They lost
also
Mike
3
McDonald.
best defensive coaches.
So I think their defense.
They had a blown coverage touchdown to Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
so
that stuff happens, guys, in week 1. It really does. It's what makes week 1 so different and sometimes such an anomaly for everything else. Right, I didn't expect the Ravens' offensive line to be in harmony. They just don't. You don't practice hard enough in training camp anymore, and you barely get any reps together in preseason games. So that sort of stuff that's going to happen, especially against now an experienced Kansas City defense. Those are guys that have all kind of grown up together in the last 2 years, and a lot of those guys don't know what it's like to not win a Super Bowl. So good for them. I do want to focus quickly on Kansas City's offense. I thought it was good.
It was the same as last year. Efficient with the sprinkle of the Xavier Worthy big plays, right? Xavier Worthy, 3 touches, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that's what this offense needed. In a game where the Ravens obviously focused in on Travis Kelce, held him to 3 catches, had that one big catch on 3rd down where it was, Patrick Mahomes' scramble drill and they're on such good wavelengths where Mahomes was extremely efficient, right? Okay, if you're going to try and take away this and take away Kelce, Rashee Rice, right? Over 100 yards for him. And then we're going to scheme up some stuff to try and create a few explosives now that we have some of those guys. And they did that with Xavier Worthy, and they didn't have Hollywood Brown, who I think in the end of the day will be their best wide receiver. This is what the Chiefs are now, because teams aren't going to let them, beat them consistently over the top. That they are a team that needs to be efficient, and they're the best in the NFL at doing it. but also they're going to be able to create some more explosives with some of the talent they added.
I'll add this too, instead of just saying 20 plus air yards, because I think there were 2 attempts that were around like 17 air yards. So I'll say from 17 air yards plus for Patrick Mahomes, he was 2 incompletions with 4 completions. So it's 4 for 6, 17 plus air yards with 1 touchdown. So they didn't take many deep shots. Really, this game was not about deep shots because you had Patrick Mahomes' average depth target was 5.9. Lamar Jackson was 6.7. And Lamar Jackson's average depth of completion was like lower than 4, I think, or around like 4 or 5. So Mahomes was efficient with his, when they chose to go deep and they chose to, take those risks of going deep, they were efficient. They completed them. And the touchdown to Worthy was sweet, where he didn't necessarily beat press, but he wasn't distracted by it. He didn't get railroaded by it. And he stays in bounds, and awesome touchdown.
The blocking on that reverse was nuts too.
Yeah.
Like that
it was great. Go back and watch Creed Humphrey.
Watch it. You can watch every guy like just separately their own time, and it's Kelsey took out 2 dudes on that play.
Yeah, fun.
That was a very fun first touchdown of the season.
So I would say that this is why Patrick Mahomes has become even more dangerous over the years, is his ability now to say, whatever you give us, I'm going to be willing to take it. That's what has, in my opinion, just taken him to an entirely
He's
new
mastered
level.
the defenses that were built to stop him better than anybody else in the NFL.
Yes.
Yep. So he's done a great job there. He also made, in my opinion, one of the biggest plays of the game, which I don't know if they made as big a deal. Collinsworth started to. It was the play with like 2.5 minutes to go where the ball gets tipped up in the air and Mahomes catches it. Okay. So not only did he outjumped 2 Ravens defenders to get the ball, he caught it, which meant the clock was going to keep running. That was a huge thing because at the end of the game, how much time was left? Zeros. There would have been an additional like 20-some seconds left to play with if that ball just hits the ground. Instead, Mahomes catches it. The Ravens don't have a timeout to use, and so the clock goes all the way down to the 2-minute warning. So that could have had some sort of factor in the outcome of the game. He makes so many smart plays. It's why that interception toward the end of the half that gave the Ravens
that
was a head scratcher. You don't see that out of him very often.
Also throwing that jump ball to Worthy when they kicked a field goal where the Ravens almost got it. Like that was those were back-to-back plays. Outside of that, he kept it pretty clean in that game. Yeah, that interception to Roquan was really puzzling, especially
you don't see that.
Especially when you think of where the clock was at that time too.
Yeah, every quarterback has a couple of plays a game where you're like, what the hell was he thinking? It seems to happen so infrequently with Mahomes now. Big picture, a year ago at this time, Kansas City was licking its wounds. Chris Jones was not in the building because of a contract issue. Travis Kelce did not play in week 1, and they got out physicaled at home by Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions. Now the Chiefs are 1-0, and they continue to take it to the Baltimore Ravens, man. They just, for whatever reason, Lamar, I know that they had a Sunday night win against them at home one time, but other than that, they just haven't been able to figure out Kansas City in the biggest games.
Yeah, no asterisks on this win. Chris Jones being there obviously is, to me, is a huge difference. For the Ravens, my big picture for the Ravens, they got to lean into Derrick Henry, Patrick Ricard, Lamar, running the ball, and setting up some play action for some shots over the top with Aguilar or whoever, and because they can't operate the same way they did last year, and I don't think they think that they can either.
As a team in the first half, they averaged over 5 yards per carry, and that was before Lamar Jackson was dropping back to pass and then scrambling. He did that a little bit, but I thought the design run where you had Isaiah Likely as a lead blocker, where you had Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield, I'm like, all right, well, lean more into that. Let's use the weapon of having, we don't know if the ball's going to Henry, we don't know if the ball's going to Lamar, and then you have Isaiah Likely as a lead blocker who had, there was a few times this game, Isaiah Likely, I think at one point put George Karlaftis on his ass, and that was even a fun play. So it's a shame that in a way that we were kind of robbed of the Isaiah Likely game. In a way, I think this is going to go down as a footnote of this game.
Yeah, week 2 watch is likely tight end 1 on the Ravens, because that was...
That did come out of nowhere.
And Mark Andrews did not look great.
Well, it did
either.
and it didn't. remember, Andrews missed significant time last year.
But did Isaiah Likely ever have a game like this though while he was gone? No, that's my question, Chris.
He did have some games that were big. I don't think he had this large. Let me see here.
Now, obviously, this game's on national television, and maybe some of those other games were not on national television, so that helps.
Yeah, but he did have some really big moments last year.
He had a 2-game stretch of 583 and a touchdown, and then 570 for a touchdown.
Yeah,
and then 3 touchdowns towards the end of the year. But again, this was his best game still, though, too, like Justin said.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, John Harbaugh did come out and say we have the best 2 tight end formation in the entire NFL.
And I
think 3. I'm kind of a fan.
I love Charlie Kohler as a blocker. Yeah.
So,
but overall, fun game. Great way to get started. Kansas City, once again, a winner 27-20. Anything else we want to do before we start moving on to Friday and then Sunday and then Monday?
Just some quick notes. Shout out to Kyle Hamilton for Travis Kelce, really limiting his impact on the game.
Travis Jones, year 3 breakout. We talked about him on the Ravens TPP. I loved him coming out of the 2022 draft. Shout out to him, even on a losing effort. I think that's it out of all the notes. Why the Ravens need to stop putting linebackers over Rashee Rice over the middle of the field. That bugged me the entire game.
Yes.
Those are the notes that are on the top of my brain that I want to talk about.
Let's do the best week 1 preview there is out there.
We will get to it. We'll kick it off with Friday's game, first one ever in Brazil. But first, Justin Penik, take it away.
And this episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan. Oh, it's one of the first times that we're talking about Captain Morgan here on Football Today. Did you know that they're the official Spice Rum sponsor of the NFL? And big news, fellas, big news. None of you were in it, but that's okay. But the rest of the JM office, we had our Captain Morgan Playmakers League fantasy football draft on Wednesday, and I drafted myself a pretty darn good team. It's a full PPR team. It's 10 teams. Kind of like your standard scoring. I even like to add in some scoring of like, hey, if you have a big game, if you have a 300-yard passing game, if you have a 40, 50-yard touchdown play, you get an extra bonus points thrown in there. I have Jalen Hurts, James Cook, Najee Harris, A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison, Devontae Adams, Dalton Schultz. I'm reading off the wrong team. Mikey, you have to edit that out. I was reading off my wrong team.
No, don't edit that out. Don't edit that out. Whose team is that? Tell us whose team that is.
I am in another league, and I was reading off another team. The team that I have for the Captain Morgan Playmakers Fantasy Football League is Josh Allen, James Cook, David Montgomery, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, Mike Gesicki, top 10 fantasy tight end this year, Malik Neighbors, Terry McLaurin, Cameron Dicker, never knew her, and Pittsburgh Steelers defense with like Julian McLaughlin, Blake Corum, and some bench gems in there as well. Captain Morgan Playmakers League, I think the winner gets postseason tickets. The loser gets something fun and exciting that we haven't fully decided yet, but we're going to have a lot of fun with that. We'll give you updates each individual week. When it gets bland, try Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum. They spiced up our fantasy league this year. It's delicious, crisp, and perfect for game day with friends. Visit CaptainMorgan.com to find Captain near you. Please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. You'll be glad you did. And thank you to Captain Morgan for sponsoring our Playmakers Fantasy Football League.
You'll be glad you did.
Okay, who was most annoying during the draft?
Honestly, Ryan Cohen, who knows nothing about football, had a really good team, and that annoyed me. Like, he was drafting off of good names and vibes, and it's like, yeah, let me draft Khalil Shakir. Well, it's like, yeah, that's honestly like a decent pick in the back end of the draft. I think he drafted like Zamir White's an awesome name. I'm like, damn, he's gonna get a lot of volume. So the fact that Ryan Cohen was just like, hey, I'm a California baseball kid. I don't care about baseball. And I'm just drafting off of friendship and vibes. And he drafted a good team. Made me mad.
Good for him. He's a good dude. He's fun. He's good. He's good energy. I wish everybody luck, and I can't wait to hear what the punishment is going to be for whomever finishes last, because those are always the most entertaining things about fantasy football. So there you go. So we're going to break down our previews each week on Fridays into certain groups, like the heavy hitter games where you have got to be like fully locked in. Then we're going to get to kind of some of the mid-tiered stuff and a few things we're going to kind of sprint through at the end. So let's start with the first ever NFL game to be played in Brazil, which is happening tonight on this Friday. Eagles, Packers. It's actually the first week 1 Friday game in the NFL since 1970 when the Rams and the St. Louis Cardinals played a game. You got two teams that are coming off of playoff appearances, but feeling very different about the way that last season ended. The Packers made it to the divisional round where they bowed out against San Francisco. That was after kicking Dallas's you-know-what. And Philly, which seemed destined for perhaps an NFC title game, if not Super Bowl appearance yet again, they stumbled down the stretch and they went one and done, losing at Tampa Bay. So, Bobby, are you more interested to see if Green Bay can continue its crescendo or if Philly can bounce back out of the gate?
To me, it's Philly bouncing back, right? You mentioned the Packers finishing red hot and the Eagles ice cold. This is also a game with 3 new coordinators.
Yeah.
In it, with Joe Barry being fired by the Packers and the Eagles firing both their coordinators. To me, the Eagles defense, I want to see how they can do with Vic Fangio under them. I think that might be their biggest upgrade of the season. And is this Eagles offense too talented to fail? Because that's the way it should be. Like the Packers are kind of going to want to live out of it's a different style of defense, right? Where we are going to stack the box. We're going to put one safety deep. We're not worried about, stopping the big play constantly. And it's just going to be totally different. Can the Eagles, my biggest thing for the Eagles is Kelsey's gone.
Yeah,
so you have Cam Jurgens at center, Mekhi Becton at right guard. This Packers front is one that can test you.
Yep.
You got Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt in the middle, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith on the edges. We'll see how Lucas Van Ness goes. How can they handle that front? Because that's a good front. It's not the best front in the NFL. This Eagles offensive line, which should be second best in the NFL talent-wise, you have 3 award winners on that group. The Eagles should score 30-plus points on the Packers when you look at this. When you look at this talent, Eagles offensive talent versus Packers defensive talent.
I also wonder if you're going to have teams like the Packers, like, new defense coordinator. I don't know. I don't necessarily know what his MO is going to be, but I wonder if you're going to have defense coordinators where even if they don't want to blitz the Eagles are very, very talented. And I think Kellen Moore is going to get a lot out of that talent. Not necessarily because Kellen Moore is this awesome, great play caller, elite play caller, but I think he's a good play caller that will get a lot of talent if it's there. And I wonder if you're going to have a team like the Packers, hey, weeks 2 through 17, it may not be their identity to be a blitzing team, but when you're playing the Philadelphia Eagles, I kind of think you should change your identity. You should change what you're about to beat them, because I think they can be beat when you blitz them.
And attack Cam Jurgens and Mekhi Becton, right? You have 2 defensive tackles who can get after, and Clark and Wyatt. Attack those 2, right? Make that your game plan on defense, attacking those 2, because the rest of the roster is nasty.
Yeah.
That's the untested. I know Jurgens played at right guard, but center's a totally different position, especially when you're replacing, a Hall of Fame center, right? How often do we have a, guy who's probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer at center? That's huge. So this Eagles team is so talented. They should be scoring 30 points on this Packers defense.
Well, by the way, let's keep in mind that Jason Kelsey helped pick his successor. He was the dude who studied Cam Jurgens' tape and was like, go get that guy.
Yeah.
I don't care whether he has to play guard a few years. Go get him because he will be he has the ability to replace me.
Very similar. Yeah, very similar in the sense of like draft profile.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're going to get more than 60 points scored tonight combined.
Ooh.
I cannot wait. I think they're going to put on a show. And to me, the most interesting aspect of this is Jordan Love. He got paid more than $200 million, including $75 at the signing portion of the program, because he had an amazing second half of his season. Bobby, don't you remember last year? This is before Justin joined the show. We were sitting there the first month and we were like, man, what are the Packers going to do at quarterback? Like, how long do you give him before you figure out either he's got it or he doesn't have it? That was the narrative at that point. Now it's, okay, well, is Jordan Love going to be an MVP sort of discussion? Are the Packers a Super Bowl contender? And I am on that hype train. I have them winning it this year. That was my prediction. I've got them beating the Bengals. So, yeah, I'm in. But it does feel kind of crazy that a lot of people in this world are like, one great half a year, and he was great the back half of last year. And we're all of a sudden saying he's arrived.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's no longer fun, and what a streak. It's you got to be it, right? This is essentially year 2. You got the big contract. Now you have real expectations. There wasn't big expectations for Jordan Love. It was very much, let's see. But now let's see you be what everyone's saying that you are, someone who can challenge as a top 5 QB in the NFL. But I'll be interested to see how LaFleur challenges Vic Fangio. I think this Packers offense is built really well to challenge a Vic Fangio defense. One, they're not force feeding anybody on that team, right? So attack the weaknesses, right? If that's Keely Ringo,
Attack the young players.
I mean, you have all your receivers who are between basically 500 and 800 yards, besides Christian Watson, who was second in yards per game last year. And then you have rookie tight ends or second-year tight ends who combined for 800 yards last year. Attack that. The real thing is, will the Packers do what I think every team should do against the Eagles until they stop it? One, they're not going to have Devin White, which might even be a blessing for the Eagles. Let's see the Eagles stop the fucking run.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Bryce Huff, you're a full-time player now, right? You're not a pass rush specialist. Set an edge.
Jordan Davis, you're in year 3.
These linebackers and Jacoby Dean, Bond, and Jeremiah, let's see how you're doing. I would try and get out on the corner versus this team and then attack whatever you perceive as their weakness in the secondary with whatever wide receiver it is. So I think I agree with you, Rose. I think this ends up being like a 35-31 game.
Awesome. That's going to be awesome. The late window on Sunday is the next game we're talking about.
I did predictions.
Sorry. Sorry. This is our first time doing this, so that's my fault. My fault. Okay, quickly. Penik, you go first. Bobby, you'll go next. I've got 1, 2.
I think oh, God, we didn't even talk about Saquon Barkley.
Well, you've got all year.
Yeah.
I know. Dude. I'm going with the Packers, man. I just think there's too many answers. They have the continuity. Packers.
Eagles win with 30-plus points.
I got the Pack.
All right.
But I think it could be like a 35-31 special where everybody is like, man, that game in Brazil was awesome. And I hope that's what we get. It's going to be weird watching football on a Friday night, I do have to admit. Very strange.
I think it's going to be weird watching them in Brazil. And apparently none of them could wear green.
Well, that was the rumor.
That was the rumor?
Came
All
out.
right, well,
I don't know if that's...
Let's
focus.
Kidnapped? All right, go ahead.
Let's focus on the good stuff, which hopefully is the game, and then get out of Dodge. Now we'll get to the late afternoon window. The marquee game on Sunday, Dallas Cowboys at the Cleveland Browns. Oh, by the way, Tom Brady, welcome to the broadcast booth. This is going to be really interesting. Once again, a pair of teams that made the playoffs last year and then went one and done. The Cowboys losing to the Packers at home. The Browns getting blown out on the road against the Houston Texans. Everybody talking about Dak not getting his contract, all that sort of stuff. They've had massive changes on the offensive line. Is that what you're focused on, Justin Penik?
Yeah, I mean, Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett, depending on what side, going up against Tyler Guyton, who, Tyler Guyton's apparently had a great camp, but Myles Garrett is the guy that was actually going over some next-gen stats today. Oh, man, this is going to be an answer to a trivia question later. Well, you got it, Bobby. Myles Garrett had the quickest get-off in the NFL last year out of all 2023 pass rushers. That's not a surprise. Or maybe it is a little bit of a surprise because of just how big and strong he is, but he's also really quick, too. So testing Tyler Guyton, and again, you're talking about another matchup where, even though the Cowboys are really good, Cowboys are good on paper, well, there's certain areas where the Browns, especially on defense, can test their offense. If you have good secondary players, force them to go to somewhere different other than CeeDee Lamb. So I'm really excited to see how this Browns defense also bounce back after having a tremendous season. They themselves have a pretty decent test week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, who I still think this year will have a very good offense.
Yeah, I want to pick the Browns and say it's easy, but because I think that Browns defense is going to be really good again. It's essentially the exact same roster. What is Deshaun Watson in this offense going to do versus a talented Cowboys defense, right? This is the first time we'll see Ken Dorsey call a game away from Josh Allen. So let's see where he really is. By the way, the team that he played on in the NFL, and Ken Dorsey, shout out to you. We're back.
You want to know what they can do? They can run the damn ball, Bobby.
That's the thing. Will the Browns be able to run the ball without Nick Chubb, without the Callahans? It's kind of Browns' offensive strength versus the Cowboys' defensive weakness. That interior of the line, right? That's where the Cowboys are weak in that linebacker group. That's where the Browns have their strength on offense. So I would see if you can get that run game going, and then passing-wise, force feed Amari Cooper. Like I would be force feeding Amari Cooper in a revenge game.
Yeah, and
for
Amari
him.
Cooper does work well with Deshaun Watson. That's kind of like the one thing that we know. And Chris, and I'll throw it to you after this. I did the Browns TPP, and I'm like, hey, credit to Kevin Stefanski for trying to adjust his offense based on what the strengths of Deshaun Watson are, right? But I'm also sitting there being like, go back to what makes Kevin Stefanski. Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball. Actually decrease that early down passing rate. And that's rare that I say that. So that's what I think. That's what I think the game plan should be against the Dallas Cowboys. What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts about this is that for two teams that made the playoffs last year and had double-digit victories, there's a lot of questions. So first of all, Stefanski's going to continue to call the play, although how they get to Sunday in preparation for that, Ken Dorsey's going to have a huge hand in what it looks like. I agree with you that they should run the ball more. In fact, it would not surprise me to see Deontay Foreman take on a leading role over Jerome Ford at times.
He should.
Yeah.
He should because he's not as many negative plays. He won't get the huge splash plays that Ford has in his bag, but he also won't have the minus plays. Both offensive lines, you got to focus on them, right? The Cowboys have got new center, new left tackle. The Browns' left tackle situation is abysmal at this point. I don't know if they're going Hudson. I don't know if they're going to move Jack Conklin over there, who has played sparingly at best in the NFL on the left side. And Jedrick Wills told everybody he's not starting this week. So we'll see where that goes. Defensively, the Browns are a different team in Cleveland than they are on the road. They give up the fewest points per game at home and the most points per game on the road. They can't figure out why that is. But last time I checked the calendar, they're playing at home, so I think that's a good thing on Sunday. The one thing is that the Cowboys seem to come out of the gate fast. Your Giants learned that the hard way in week one.
Every year.
And also, in each of the last 4 years, when Dak has been the quarterback, the Cowboys lead the league in points per game. You could say whatever you want about Dak is an elite, he isn't this, he isn't that. He puts points on the board, man. And even if they don't have depth at receiver and virtually nothing at running back, they're able to score points. And as a Browns fan, that scares the hell out of me this Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be how well can they force feed that Amari Cooper. Now, they don't have Tyron Smith, which is huge. And they've had stinkers in week. Remember Tampa a couple of years ago, they put up 3 points, I think, in week one.
Yeah, but isn't that the game where Dak got hurt late, too? Didn't he
sure,
break his
but he
thumb or
played the
something?
majority.
He did. He played
the majority of that game, and that wasn't a great matchup for them. But still, like, like you said, Tyler Guyton has looked good in camp, which is like Cowboys did it again. But
it's still like Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett.
Yeah, it's Myles Garrett and Terrence Steele. Like, if Guyton gets to at least what his potential is supposed to be, then Steele's the weakest point of that offensive line, even though he's a solid starter. But then on the flip side, Micah Parsons is going to abuse the Browns tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's going to abuse them. So that's why I think the Browns should kind of try and get big, run it down their throats a little bit. When you do throw the ball, get that ball to Amari Cooper. My question for you is, what is Jerry Jeudy's role? Like, what is his role in this offense? Like, what can we expect for a stat line? Is it 3 for 48? Is it 6 for 50? Like, what are we getting out of him?
We don't know, in part because not only did we not see them together, I mean, Deshaun Watson didn't take a snap. None of those receivers, except for Elijah Moore, took a snap in the preseason. And we barely saw them at practice. That's why these 2 weeks in between the final preseason game and Sunday kickoff were so important, particularly for this franchise, because Jerry Jeudy was in and out of the training camp lineup. He had something that was bothering him. They never got into it specifically. So I don't know what he's going to, not trying to dodge the question. We really do not know. I don't think it's going to be great.
So we'll I think this is kind of going to be a little bit ugly on both sides.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
For these offenses, right? I just that it's not even just like, oh, the Cowboys, I'm worried about their offense this year. It's more of the Browns defense does that to everybody.
All right, so let's do some predictions.
The rookie left tackle. I think the Browns win in an ugly defensive battle, like a 19. I'm not doing score predictions for every game.
Yeah,
but like in the 1917 type of game.
Oh, 1917. I would love to pick the Browns. This is a huge swing game for them to start off the season because their first 5 weeks are very manageable. But it does scare the heck out of me. I'll just leave it at that. Justin.
Something that we haven't even talked about too is, the Cowboys' record against teams that are above 500, and the Browns even with all their blemishes, they're a football team that wins games, right?
Yeah, but I don't like doing that in week 1 only because we don't know. Like last year, if we had talked about the Rams on this show in week 1, we would have been like, God, they're going to be vying for the first pick in the
Yeah, that
draft.
is
And then
true.
at the end of the year, they played great. So to me, it is an interesting stat, but we have to be like a month into the season in
And
order for it to apply to me, at least.
Especially with the Browns, because if they have like 15 to 20% regression on defense, that's a team that probably doesn't make the playoffs
yeah.
last year.
All right, so
right.
I will go with the Cowboys. I don't feel great about it, but I just think their question marks are a lot more manageable than the Browns. I also don't. I just don't trust the Browns' offensive identity. If they lean more into being physical,
Mhm.
then great. But also, it's tough to lean more into being physical. And Bobby said, "Be big." When you have David Njoku and Jordan Akins at tight end, there's only 2 tight ends on the roster right now, and one of them can block and the other one cannot.
Okay, let me ask you this very quickly. How interested are you in listening to Tom Brady?
Oh, very.
Very. I hope that he's critical, but I also, we were talking about it earlier. He kind of has a little bit of like back in my day tendency, and I don't want him to go full that, but I also want to see him be critical.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be fascinating because I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I have zero idea of what to expect. I think he's with a very good guy in Kevin Burkhardt, and he's with an outstanding production crew that's going to take good care of him.
Yep.
But I mean, this is the most. Is it fair to say it's the most anticipated broadcasting debut ever?
Oh, at least as long as I've been paying attention to that stuff. And he's replacing the greatest broadcaster of all time in Greg Olson.
Which I agree with that.
Right, Twitter?
Yes. Twitter says yes.
He says go for it on 4th down. That's just nuts.
He talks about explosive plays. I love it.
Can we go to
I'm a
Sunday
sucker
Night
for it.
Football if you don't mind?
Let's go to Sunday Night Football, a rematch.
A rematch of last year's wild card game, which was great. It was entertaining theater, particularly because of the atmosphere that we saw at Ford Field. It was ridiculous. Lions ended up besting Matthew Stafford and the Rams 24-23. It was their first playoff win in 32 years. So here we go. The Rams will start their 2024 where they ended their 2023 season. Is it all about Matthew Stafford? Because he did play a damn good game last year and still came up on the short end of the stick. Is that where we're starting?
So here's where I'm worried about, and I tweeted this out. Right? Remember the splits of Goff with pressure and without pressure in that game last year? Without pressure, 19 of 19, 242 yards and a touchdown. Under pressure, 3 of 8, 35 yards and 3 sacks. Right? So you'd be like, oh, well, the Rams need to do more to bring more pressure. They lost 50% of those pressures with Aaron Donald and Ernest Jones gone, right? And both these teams improved their secondary, right? And that's why I'm so high on the Lions. They were top 5 unit and 3 of the 4 units on offense and defense. Their weak unit, they went and attacked, and essentially outside of DJ Reader, their 4 biggest investments of the offseason were at that cornerback position to get better in the secondary. Brian Branch can play a little more traditional, box safety without him having to play nickel now that Meek Robertson's there. I just feel a lot better about the Lions than I do the Rams. And I'm someone who's pretty high on the Rams, but I think the Lions kind of handled that front. That's a very young front, and the Lions are I feel like they're going to have their way offensively.
Well, Kobe Turner's a guy, obviously, who had a fantastic rookie season, a 3rd rounder a year ago out of Wake. 9 sacks on the interior, pretty damn good. In fact, Ndamukong Suh, speaking of the Lions, is the only interior defensive lineman to have more sacks as a rookie over the last 2 decades than Kobe Turner. So I'm not saying he's going to turn into anything close to Aaron Donald, but that is a nice building block, right? They also added Jared Verse, who I know you were very high on, Bobby, right?
Yeah, I just don't think he's come in and
out of the gate
challenge Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker consistently. Like he can make a play or two, but I don't think he's going to bring that consistent pressure. And I have the Lions winning this game.
Handily?
Maybe not. It's not a blowout, but you're going to feel good about the Lions this entire game.
Like
I think they're just going to have their way with that front. And Matthew Stafford, like you said, he did ball in that game, right? I thought it was the best.
367 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I thought it was the best quarterback performance of the wild card round, despite the fact that he lost. Here's the thing. I mean, 178 yards and both touchdowns. those were both against guys who aren't just playing for the Lions or starting for the Lions anymore, right? Like Puka Nacua had 180 yards in that wild card game. So for the Lions, I guess it's time to see if their 4 big investments in cornerback did pay off. I don't think it's going to turn into some elite cornerback group, but compared to last year where they had practice squad guys playing, I think the Lions won the last matchup, and they are more improved than the Rams.
And by the way, the guys we're talking about, the additions are Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold, who slipped in the draft.
Even Amik Robertson and Ennis Rakestraw probably won't play, but like he's a high second round pick.
Yep.
And Amik Robertson, he's been a good starting nickel corner in the NFL for a long time. Now you don't have to have Brian Branch in the nickel, so they essentially strengthened 4 positions by the cornerback signings that they did, and they added a DJ Reader. It's just what the Rams may have is a lot of time to throw because they're really the only threat that the Lions have is Aiden Hutchinson. But at the same time, Aiden Hutchinson balled in that last game. I mean, he had,
and they were top 5 in pressure rate.
Yeah, I mean, Lions had 2 sacks and 5 QB hits, which isn't very good in that playoff game. Hutchinson had 2 of both sacks, and then 3 of the quarterback hits. So,
but what's really interesting about the Lions' defense is that they were the worst. They were the worst secondary in the league last year when they actually got pressure on the quarterback. Like there was no secondary that allowed more yards per attempt, EPA per attempt when they did get pressure on the quarterback. So I'm a big believer in. I think Glenn, the defense coordinator for the Lions, he kind of take his foot off the gas this year, not be blitzing so much, because when they were a top 10 pass defense, when they got no pressure on the quarterback. Or I should say they were a top 10 pass defense when they brought 5 guys or less, 4 guys.
But I think that's why they added these corners is because they want to continue playing like that, but not get burnt by the awful corner.
Right.
Like they had, it's remarkable they went as far as they did with that bad of cornerback play last year.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you both. I really agree with Bobby. We broke it down in the Lions TPP, how much better they got. And it's kind of, hey, really great job looking at, you have a good roster. You have a roster that's already competing for a Super Bowl. How can we look in the mirror and recognize, well, what have we got? What have we done wrong in the past, and how do we need to improve? And they did it. And they even doubled down. They double dipped in secondary pieces too. So that's credit to them.
All right.
And I agree with you. But
predictions.
Rams are going to win this. Matt Stafford, he deserves it. Matt Stafford's going to ball. He's going to ball even more than what he did in the playoff game. And they also can run the damn ball with the Rams as well. Rams.
I've got the Rams as well, in part because I had the Lions going 9-8 on our show. Once again, I have no idea how I got them to 9-8 when we did and if you're just listening to this for the first time, you're like, moron, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. We did the whole thing where we picked every game throughout the season. You totally lose track of what teams are. And the Lions are the biggest bugaboo on my schedule. But I got to stick with it because I have them losing this game.
Lions win. They have their way with that Rams defense.
All right, before we get back to the show, got to talk about DraftKings. With football season kicking off, it's the perfect time to dive into the action with our partners over at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet on touchdowns. Right now, all new customers bet just $5 will instantly get $250 in bonus bets plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. I love NFL Plus Premium. They're doing some fun stuff with it. You can watch some film. There's next-gen stats. I'm loving it so much. I spend my commutes to the office on NFL Plus Premium, and the fact that if you just bet just $5 on anything, you get $250 in bonus bets plus the 1 month free of NFL Plus Premium. Now, that's something we can all celebrate. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes as well. DraftKings, it's the place for touchdowns. It's the place you can get NFL Plus Premium free for a month. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code FOOTBALLTODAY, all one word. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $250 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FOOTBALLTODAY, all one word, only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You'll be glad you did.
All right. Last one of the big 4 that we're going over. Monday night. It will end week 1. Aaron Rodgers, welcome back. Please play more than a single series for the New York Jets as they take on the defending NFC champions San Francisco 49ers. Do we expect, Bobby, Aaron Rodgers to shoot out of the gate and be the 4-time MVP, or will there be a little bit of a massaging period, if you will?
Well, that's my biggest question for this game. And I'm actually really excited for the 49ers offense versus Jets defense because I think that's really a juggernaut matchup, despite the fact that they don't have Hassan Reddick, which is kind of nuts when you're talking about the Jets.
Unbelievable how that's gone down.
What do we get? Because here's the thing I'm a little worried about the Jets is they are a Garrett Wilson or bust offense. Right now, Rodgers gets them out of Lazard. Now, Brees, passing
Hall?
game. Passing game wise. And then Brees Hall's going to get, but I'm talking about like Brees Hall's going to get a lot of receiving yards. But
dude, Rodgers Rodgers changes it though, man. You don't think that having Aaron Rodgers back there and having receivers that, you know what, Mike Williams can run a route. Lazard
they're playing the
can run
49ers though. I'm not for the whole season. Yeah, they'll be fine. Playing the 49ers, that's my biggest question.
And that's fair. And he struggled
and
against the 49ers.
And the 49ers are going to know. Like we gotta stop Garrett Wilson or force him to get. Now, again, the only guy that can get some success out of Lazard is Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they have really any slot presence. I don't like Gibson. So that's my question. Here's what I think, though. I think Purdy might have a multi-interception game in this one.
Gonna be like the Christmas night game against the Ravens.
So here's the thing, right? Let's look at Brock Purdy versus like top defenses, which I view the Jets as one of these groups. Like last year, the Browns and the Ravens. He went 12 of 27 with 1 touchdown and interception, only 125 yards versus the Browns. That's a bad game. And this was with Trent Williams, too. It's not like the games where he didn't have Trent Williams. And then versus the Ravens, he threw 4 picks. And I view the Jets in a similar way that I viewed those two defenses last year, not as high as the Browns, but where they make you think something's open and then they close in on it, right? And they get after it 4, and the 49ers offensive line is bad outside of Trent Williams pass blocking wise, even though the group of Jermaine Johnson, Clemens, and Will McDonald doesn't scare you as much as it does with Hassan Reddick or, Huff and JFM.
Quinnen Williams needs to kill.
That's the thing. Quinnen Williams is the monster in the middle for them versus a bad offensive line. So I think the 49ers will still be able to score points, but I if there's any game on the schedule for the 49ers where I'm like Brock Purdy, multiple turnovers, it's this one. Because of the way the Jets just close in on every time you think you got something, they close in on that. And Purdy's a little bit on trust in the system and pulling the trigger on stuff. I can see this Jets defense having a really good performance.
Well, so there's two things. Obviously, it starts with Aaron Rodgers because we just don't know what he is yet in Jets green. What he is against San Francisco in the regular season is elite. He is 6-3 against them, 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Problem, January.
Yeah.
0-4 in the playoffs against him. But we'll deal with that if they get to see each other in the Super Bowl down in New Orleans. The other side that's more interesting to me is
Robert Saleh. I think one of those was a Robert Saleh unit too.
Yes, I believe you're correct. So here's the other thing. I never have heard so much noise out of a Niners camp. It was so un-Niners-like. Everything from Brandon Ayuk to Trent Williams to the team being so injured that they had to cancel their joint practices. Do we really believe that Brock Purdy is the right guy? Because at this time next year, they're going to have to pay him a substantial amount of money. Is this the last year for Debo? How's Christian McCaffrey's calf? Like, there was so much talk. I was like, is it the Dallas Cowboys out in Northern California, or is it the San Francisco 49ers? And I am curious if they're going to be on top of everything else, they've been the best team over the last decade that hasn't freaking won a Super Bowl. Let's throw that one on it. And we're running out of time because all our guys are getting old. So all of that, are they able to push all of that aside and look great against what we all think is a team that can compete at the least for a playoff spot and at best for a Super Bowl appearance?
And the Jets are hungry, man. Yeah. You got to know that they're, I think the Jets more than any other team in the NFL, because you saw the whole wave of Zach Wilson, we're behind Zach Wilson, we're not behind Zach Wilson. I think the Jets are the most like vibes team in the NFL, that it's like, we're going to come out with the chip on our shoulder this week and play well, or the next week it's like, oh, we're out of this game. We don't really give a fuck. So Jets all the way, man. I think they're winning this game.
Here's
That's
the
your
thing,
team.
though. You mentioned the 49ers noise. Last year's camp was honestly more nuts because they didn't know who they were playing at quarterback. And Purdy was coming back from the injury. He didn't look great in practice when he came back from it. And they traded Trey Lance. This year, I just look at it as guys wanting their money, right? And I think they're a team. Their stars are vets. They understand it. They're going to show up and they're going to fucking play. But it's just this Jets defense is really good. The question to me is this 49ers defense, I think, is going to be improved. And this is Aaron Rodgers' first playing in a long time. And they're going to test the Jets offense, right?
That offensive line is so much better than it was last year with the Jets.
So it's new and improved, but they can still, they still got Nick Bosa, right? They got Jonathan Hargrave in the middle. They got Leonard Floyd who is going to get production for you. In fact, I think he was the guy who had the sack on Aaron Rodgers last year.
Yeah, he did.
If I remember correctly. So
exactly what happened.
It's a very matchup battle from the Jets offense versus the 49ers. I mean, you have Garrett Wilson versus Charvarius Ward, Nick Bosa versus Tyron Smith, and I'm sure he'll get some against Morgan Moses too. Breece Hall versus Fred Warner, and then maybe the low-key biggest matchup, Alan Lazard versus Isaac Yadam. How about that?
Okay, enough. Give us your pick. We got Jets over there. Who do you have?
49ers look ugly, but they win on the final drive.
Okay. I think I got the Jets on this one. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to make some serious news in his Tuesday chop with Pat McAfee. If he is indeed doing it on Tuesday, will be very interesting.
Rose, we need to disagree on a game.
See, I've disagreed with you guys on every game.
I know, because Rose and I have agreed with each other on every game.
I know. Well, that's either really good news for me or bad news for you.
I just hope one of us goes 4-0 in these games instead of us going 2-2. That's boring. So
yeah, it is a little boring.
But we need one of us to be 4-0 and one of us to be 0-4.
All right, these next handful of games, we're going to go through at a little bit of a quicker pace. Still very interesting. We're not going to do as deep a dive. Let's start with the Steelers and the Falcons. It's the Arthur Smith revenge game, guys. Russell Wilson is starting at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kirk Cousins, coming off of his torn Achilles, is going to be starting for the Atlanta Falcons. All right, Penik, anything interest you outside of the quarterbacks, or is we going with low-hanging fruit?
Honestly, it's the run games for both of these teams too, because you have the Steelers' young offensive line.
We have our new weatherman banging on the window.
Our new weatherman is banging on the window, Jolly Olive. Yeah, but it's the run games, because we know that Arthur Smith can last year was not good. We know that he can call up a good run game, and Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. The usage of those two players is something that is always a question every single year, and you never know how Arthur Smith is going to utilize his players. There's usually, hey, if you're a fantasy football owner, there's usually somebody from that Falcons offense that you're always being like, I really wish that guy was used more. I wonder who that player is going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. And then even the Falcons, it's like, well, how can we help out Kirk Cousins? Yeah, we have Bijan Robinson, we have Tyler Algier, and we also have one of the best kick-ass run-blocking offensive lines going up against a solid defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if the Falcons are walking away from week one with a very positive running performance against a very solid defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, Falcons, like, this could be a kick-ass offense, and we're not even talking about Kirk Cousins yet and his ability to throw the ball.
Can I say something? Yes, I can. It's a podcast. Raheem Moore's better win this game. They should be the better team. Raheem Morris takes over a defense that adds Matthew Judon to it. I think Matthew Judon's going to have a really big game. The Falcons had the number one rush defense in EPA last year.
Yes, that's why I'm very excited.
They lost Ryan Nielsen. Raheem Morris better be able to team that stops the run against a Steelers passing game that you're not worried about. They're going to play action you to death, right? Like even if the Steelers can, even if like George Pickens wins his matchup, versus AJ Terrell, the Falcons should win this game. They should be the better team by a good margin. So I think the Falcons have to win this game. Obviously, we're talking about week one. There's no must wins. But the Falcons really should win this game. I'm excited for the Falcons offense versus Steelers defense. I think the Drake London versus Joey Porter Jr. matchup can be really fun.
Physical versus physical.
My question is just what will the Falcons offense look like, and can the Falcons defense that was underrated last year be as good under a defensive head coach and Raheem Morris?
I am excited to see Kirk Cousins. He was playing the best football of his career those first 7 weeks a year ago. He was on pace for more than 4,600 yards. He was looking great. I want to see how he bounces back. And he's one of those guys that just seems to understand football better and better as he now gets into his mid-30s. I want to see if he can take a guy like Drake London to a next level. Drake London has 6 touchdowns in 2 seasons. That's just not enough. And certainly with his talent. Kyle Pitts, who's already on the injured report.
I think that's the biggest question mark is how does Kyle Pitts fit in this offense?
Yeah.
London's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Well,
Bijan, I expect to go off all year and in this game. Can they get Kyle Pitts back to his rookie production? Because we act like Kyle Pitts has been like this total bust. He had the best rookie season for a tight end of all time. He had 1,000 yards. I think him and Ditka and Shockey are the only guys that do that. So
yeah. All right, let's do
how does
predictions.
the Falcons offense look? That's my question.
I'll start off with predictions. I believe Atlanta will win this one, although Pittsburgh 15-2-1 all time against the Atlanta Falcons. That is
The
their
one
best.
was versus the Browns coming off of their own 16th season. I remember that.
No. 15-2-1 against the Falcons.
Oh, you said one, and we were talking about week one. I thought we were talking about a tie.
Sorry about that.
All right, well, they're going to go 15-3-1. I got the Falcons too. Bijan Robinson, big game. I'm excited to see what this Falcons offense just looks like. I'm just not excited for the Steelers at all. They have Russell Wilson. Who's their number 2 wide receiver? Injured Roman Wilson?
What do you got, Penik?
Falcons. Move on.
We all agree. How about that?
A pair of rookies taking center stage in Chicago, Titans and their rookie head coach, Brian Callahan. Chicago Bears and the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. Do we think he's going to wow us right out of the gate, Penik? Or is this going to take a little while?
Oh, man.
I'm so excited for this game.
Can I tell you something? This is the game that I'm most excited for this
Me
weekend.
too, because this is the show me what you are type of game.
Yeah.
You've made big changes. This is the show me what you are game.
Like, we know that Cowboys and Browns, those are teams with good players. Packers, Eagles. I mean, Thursday night we already talked about the Ravens and the Chiefs. We know that they're good, right? But Titans and Bears, I just love that these two specific teams are meeting up on week one. I freaking love it, man. This is the game. Honestly, this is going to be the first game that I'm going to watch Monday morning, depending on how it goes, of course. Man, so your question was, is Caleb Williams going to get off to that really fast start? Here's what I'm going to say. I think Caleb Williams is going to have 2 or 3 plays that I'm going to be like, oh my God, I want to clip this up and I want to make a short out of it, and it's going to be really fun. But it's going to be the rest of the stuff that is going to be a question for Caleb Williams early on, because there is no stopping the inevitable that is going to be the jaw-dropping throws that he's going to have, whether that's in structure, whether that's inside the pocket, kind of like threading the needle, or outside the pocket when he's running to his left, going to his right, and he's throwing on the run. I am going to pick the Titans to win this game. And I think Will Levis is going to have a fun day. I think that offensive line is going to show somewhat improvement against a somewhat talented Bears front. I mean, I'm even excited about Gervon Dexter going up against that interior of that Titans O-line too. I believe in Will Levis a little bit more right now, even though I want the Bears to be good, but I also want the Titans to be good. So give me the Titans week 1.
Yeah, so I also have a stat I found. Jeffrey Simmons has 5 sacks in his 5 first games of the year. 21.5 in his other 63 games. So
it's the Jordan Phillips stat.
Yeah, 1 sack per game in those 5 games, a third of a sack per game in his other 63. How about that? So for this Titans defense under Denard Wilson, that they've already kind of built in his image a little bit quickly, they're going to throw a lot of post-snap disguise. If there's one thing that I worried a little bit about Caleb coming out of USC is like that post-snap disguise. So that's a good matchup there. But really, like, I kind of have an expectation of what I think the Bears are going to be this year and how they'll look. Where I don't know is Levis. How is Callahan going to shape this offense around Levis, right? Awful situation, but a fearlessness to him last year with the high average depth of target, led the NFL in deep throw rate. How does, and I think this run game can be a really good under with the Callahan and Son, with the addition of J.C. Latham, Skoronski going to guard. I think Pollard could be in for a big year. My question is, one, this is partly for my fantasy team because I have Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins on my team as like my second flex. Who is Jalen Johnson going to cover of those two? And I think a big matchup is whoever Tyreek Stevenson is covering of those two. Who wins that matchup? Because Jalen Johnson's going to shut down whoever he goes against. Who wins the other matchup?
So Will Levis last year threw 4 touchdowns in his initial start and then 4 in the other 8 games.
Titans are the king of amazing debut games for quarterbacks and then tailing off.
That's right. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston in 2015. That was a great one. It was like the best game nobody saw. And then with Caleb Williams, I cannot wait because I think This guy has a chance to change the history of Chicago Bears offense. We have talked about it a bunch on this podcast about they don't have a 4,000-yard passer or a 30 touchdown dude. Does he get either of those this year, guys?
Yeah.
You think he does?
I think he gets 4,000 yards passing because the way their offense can be built.
Yeah. That's what I'm excited to look forward to, right? The 3 receivers, a very serviceable tight end in Cole Kmet, an interesting running game. They've done a solid job, I think, building the offensive line. Certainly good enough. Can't fix everything at once. I can't wait to see him. And I don't think that's just all hyperbole and hype. I really believe that he is such a difference maker for a franchise that this is one of those moments where we're going to be like, we could see it starting.
Yeah. I think these are 2 fun teams that are probably in that 8 to 9 win, flirting around 8-9 wins at the end of the year. But I really like this matchup. This, like Justin said, me and Justin must be too similar because this is the game I'm the most excited for.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. Let's do picks.
Even like all these other great games, whoever loses that game, like, okay, they lost to a really good team. This is a kind of show me who you are type of game. So I'm really excited for it. And please, someone in the comments let me know who Jalen Johnson's going to cover. Because I'm going to start whoever he's not covering.
I think we got to roll. We got to roll through some of these other games.
Nah,
I hear you. What do you got? Who do we have win?
I got Titans.
Penik?
I have Titans as well.
All right. I got Bears at home.
Bears.
Oh, Chris.
Texans and Colts. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. This is something that hopefully will be happening for years in this division. Justin?
Rose, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Have your friends at NFL Network provided you with some stats on like when's the last time the Colts have won a Week 1 game?
I didn't see that in there.
Because I feel like it's been a very, very long time.
Oh, you don't have the stat, Justin?
No, I don't. That's why I like Dalton Philly just jokes around the office that they like the last time that they won a Week 1 game was like a decade ago.
Huh.
And I don't think that's true.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right.
But it's been a long time. That's obviously it's sarcasm on his end.
I know. Well, let me see if I can
tied in 2022.
That's not a win.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Well, let me
2018. Or no, that's a wild card. No, never mind. I'm gonna find it. Oh my god, it really has. You should have looked this stat up because it's been a great stat. Now it's my stat.
Huh.
Well, I'm taking credit for it.
Oh, all right. Well, I would say this though, while we're looking for that stat.
What the hell?
Big picture, like this is the game where last year it came down to Week 18 and C.J. Stroud putting together a drive when he needed it most against Gardner Minshew and the Colts. And obviously we're all wondering whether or not Anthony Richardson is going to come back and be okay. And he didn't have a lot of starts in college, and he only started 4 games last year, and he didn't complete a bunch of I think we all know what C.J. Stroud is, and that could be an MVP candidate, and we're all trying to figure out what Anthony Richardson is, and that starts in a home divisional game against the defending division champions.
What Ohio State quarterback was playing against the Colts in their last Week 1 win?
What Ohio State quarterback?
Yeah.
Troy Smith.
Terrell Pryor
in 2014 for the Raiders. He had 112 rushing yards.
That's rough.
I thought Pryor was going to be a beast. I believed.
I thought he was going to be a beast at receiver.
Supplemental draft king. Bring back the supplemental draft. Really can't without the new NIL.
So has it been 10 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stat,
can I say, I think the Texans are going to work this Colts defense. Oh. I hate this Colts defense so much. I think it's untalented. I think it's badly coached. Nico Collins had 340 yards in both their matchups.
Total, everybody.
And the combined. Tank Dell had 7 for 72 in the one game. Now you're adding Stephon Diggs to that. Like, give me one reason why the Texans won't torch the Colts defense.
I can't. I am such a firm believer in what the Texans are doing. I've got C.J. Stroud winning MVP. To me, this is a short discussion this week.
Yeah, here's a stat, though. Well, not a stat, a trend. The Texans' run defense is really good. They struggle with rushing QBs. Lamar had 100 rushing yards versus them in the playoff game. Anthony Richardson had 2 touchdowns on 4 drives in that Week 2 game last year. The 2 highest games for rushing yards allowed for the Texans last year, The Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, they average 100,
Like,
more than
No Josh
175
Downs
yards
for
per
the
game
Colts.
against them.
I think that's big. Pittman versus Stingley. I'm ready for Anthony. I want Anthony Richardson to show me that this offseason of hype and seeing the one throw on all 22 being replayed by every analyst. Prove it. Everyone's excited for you. Go out and prove it.
So we both have the Texans, Penik.
yeah, I have the Texans too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Texans score 35 and win.
Battle of Florida, Jags at the Dolphins. A
Love
pair
this.
of quarterbacks in Trevor Lawrence and Tua that ended up getting extended over the summer. Penik?
Dolphins. I just think the firepower on offense is too good. They have too many answers. I think it's going to overpower the Jacksonville Jaguars. This could be a high scoring game, but I'm picking the Dolphins early on in the year.
One, I love an early season Florida game, and you
Sure.
don't realize, but these fan bases hate each other. Like, there's a lot of opportunity for fight videos to come out of this. Florida men against each other is just very dangerous.
Especially in Miami.
Yeah, actually, it's sometimes dangerous in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Usually Florida men were on the same team. When you put us against each other, that's just a bad mix. Two new defensive coordinators in Ryan Nielsen and Anthony Weaver. I think Ryan Nielsen's going to make big changes to that Jag defense. The issue is Mike McDaniel's going to have something new for us, right? Last year was that little short motion that has, infiltrated the game. What is he going to have? Now, you may not be without, they may be without Jalen Waddle. We don't, have that, that information if he's playing or not right now. Can the Jags linebackers hang with the Dolphins bells and whistles? Because that's what the Miami Dolphins defense tests you, is their linebackers. And the Jags have guys in Devin Lloyd and Foyesade. So the thing is that the Dolphins neutralize pass rush, and that's the strength of the Jags defense with Josh Allen and Eric Armstead. I think the Dolphins have early season firepower, and I think the Jaguars are the most average team across the board in the NFL.
As bad as the finish was for the Miami Dolphins, where they lost at home on that Sunday nighter against the Bills and fell from the 2 to the 7 seed and they had to go to freezing Kansas City and bow out without a whimper. It was worse for the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, who started 8-3. We thought last year they were the easiest pick of any eventual division champion, just because of all the turnover in the AFC South. It didn't end up being that way. They missed out on the playoffs. I think we're looking at them and wondering where they are as a franchise right now, particularly after giving Trevor Lawrence all that money. I think out of the gate, they are losing. I'm very curious about them. I don't have them making the playoffs. I think they're just a so-so team. So
Who is going to lead the Jags in receiving this game or the season?
Jags. Christian Kirk, without a doubt.
I think Christian Kirk, as long as he's around, he's fine.
Yeah. They like to force feed Evan Ingram.
Yeah,
But
I
his
mean,
yards
Evan
per
Ingram might have
reception-
more catches, but I think that Christian Kirk is more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get back to what they did in 2022, and it was spreading the ball around and not forcing it to anybody. So,
All right, Raiders at the Bolt. Jim Harbaugh coming off of a national title at his alma mater at Michigan, back in the NFL for the first time in a decade, where he won nearly 70% of his games. Bobby, this is your guy. This is your team. Go ahead.
Raiders scored 63 in this game last year, 63-21 game. I mean, I think the Chargers run all over them. The question for me is, because this is when I talk about the Chargers, it's like, all right, the defensive talent, but they have no weapons on offense. How does the passing game look? We know it's not going to be super high volume. How does it look? Who's going to be the top guy in there? Is it going to be run through Lad McConkey? Is Palmer going to be the de facto guy? Can they get anything out of Quentin Johnson? So that's my question. For the Raiders offensively, I mean, their trump card is just Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers versus a bad cornerback group. So I think both these teams have good questions. The Raiders, you let Josh Jacobs walk, you're going to hand the keys to Zamir White, who they really like. He had 99 yards per game in those games he started. I think this is a big question game on just what are you getting out of the Chargers this year, right? Is Jesse Minter the next best thing at defensive coordinator, right? Comes from, he was under Mike McDonald at Michigan. He's going to be the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. So a lot on his plate with a talented defense outside of the rush. And can that rush be something that gives this defense to be a middle of the pack defense?
I'm also wondering if Justin Herbert's foot's all right.
Yep.
He's full. He's not even on the injury report.
Nah, well, they put him on. Then they added him to the injury report because I think the NFL made him. He was a full participant in Wednesday's practice, so that's good. That's good. But I think the NFL did make him put him on the injury report.
Did you
Oh,
know
they
that-
literally 54 minutes ago they updated it. Was a
put him on.
full. Okay, so he's
Yeah.
a full though.
Yeah, so they made. I think the NFL made the Chargers put him on the injury report.
Did you know that once Antonio Pierce became the interim coach for the last 9 games, that the Raiders led the NFL in defensive points per game allowed?
Patrick Graham, baby, Patrick
Yup.
Graham. But it's just
So
I don't think there's enough talent on that defense to be so reliant on coaching for it to be
Yeah.
sustainable.
I've got the Chargers in this one in part because Jim Harbaugh went 4-0 in week 1 as the San Francisco 49ers head coach. So I think that trend continues. I'm not as high on them as Bobby is, but I think that they're going to compete for a wild card spot.
Yeah, obviously I'm really high on the Chargers, so if I picked them against a team that I think might be the one of the worst in the NFL and the Raiders, I'd be a moron. So let's go Chargers.
You know what? I'm changing it. Let's go Raiders.
Okay. Like that.
You know what? Two teams with I think similar identities. I think Antonio Pierce wants to come in and run the ball. I think Antonio Pierce wants to come in and be physical. He said this. I do trust their defensive talent more than I trust the Chargers' defensive talent. And even like the offense coordinator for the Raiders too, coming over from Chicago. I didn't love the Chicago Bears passing offense, but if there's one thing that they did well, it is their running scheme. So you know what? Raiders. I actually do think the Raiders have a more talented roster. Obviously, the Chargers get the advantage with the quarterback with having Justin Herbert. But you know what? Raiders, let's slow down the Harbaugh train for 1 week.
I think Jesse Minter is going to be a name that we learn about this year, right? You think this is a great example because we're talking about the Raiders with the lack of talent they had. They had Max Crosby. What the Chargers do is they have a pass rush. They have a safety they trust in Alohi Gilman. I think Jesse Minter makes this defense look playable throughout the year, despite the fact that they are not very talented outside of that front.
All right. These last 6 games, we're going to run through. Each of us we don't all get a comment about it. Just one guy, and then we're going to roll.
Bang.
Cardinals, Bills. Penik, are you more interested in seeing what the Bills' offense looks like without Stephon Diggs or Arizona's with Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Arizona's with Marvin Harrison Jr. because I think that offense could be really fun. We saw when Kyler Murray came back that they became the most efficient rushing team in the National Football League last year. Now you're adding Marvin Harrison Jr. to the mix. Can Kyler Murray throw the ball? We have a full, healthy offseason of Kyler Murray. How can we complement that running game? And can we throw the ball more, be more efficient, get more explosive? So I'm going to go with more interesting storyline is Cardinals with Marvin Harrison Jr.
And your prediction?
The Bills. Sorry.
Bobby,
I agree.
prediction?
I got the Bills winning, but I am more interested in the Arizona Cardinals offense.
Same thing. We all hit the same thing there. Patriots, Bengals. Bobby, doesn't this feel like the biggest no-brainer of the week blowout?
It better be because the Bengals are 1-7 in week 1 and 2 with Joe Burrow as their quarterback. You need to beat the shit out of the Patriots. Bengals win, and honestly, they better win by a good margin. They should overwhelm that Patriots offensive line, and Joe Burrow should do enough against that Patriots defense that's a little underrated. Pop Douglas over under 7.5 catches. I'm going to hit over. Bengals win.
Isn't the biggest question whether or not Jamar Chase gets his deal done before Sunday?
Yeah,
I mean,
but he showed up to practice,
Yeah,
so
he'll
he's
be
playing.
there.
I know, but isn't that the biggest question that we've got? Because then you can finally put it to bed. Hopefully.
My biggest question is if Jacoby Brissett sucks, will Gerard Mayo have the wherewithal to not put in Drake May too early?
Well, that's one for probably future episodes here. I've got the Bengals running away, and yes, I think it is the biggest blowout of the week. Penik?
Bengals. Yes.
Bengals.
Chris Rose, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
The next game is Panthers at Saints. So, Chris Rose, which of these NFC South teams will be more watchable in 2024? See what
That's
I did
the
there, Rose?
Carolina
I thought you were getting ready
Panthers.
to do an ad.
Nope.
That is the Carolina Panthers. Good job, Penik. I love that. I love it
Thank
that
you.
you just you ran right under center and took it.
a
It is the
question.
Carolina Panthers because the New Orleans Saints are a bottom 5 watchable team to me. And it's just not close. I know that Bobby likes their defense. He thinks that they can win 9
Oh,
games.
they're only just really good.
That's fine, but they're not a watchable team. Like, if you were to rank the 32 teams in terms of most interesting to watch, where do the Saints fall?
Higher than the disaster Panthers. It's going to be
No, that's part of the fun of watching. I want to see whether or not people are big on Dave Canales. I'm just telling you, they really believe in his ability to turn short quarterbacks into big dudes. I mean, not physically, but you understand what I'm saying.
It's
like
a skill in the NFL.
I think that they feel like he did it with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He
Baker's a little
did it with
short.
Baker Mayfield last year. Why not with Bryce Young? So now I don't think they're going to win the game, but I do think that they're going to be more watchable.
Yeah.
So there you go.
The Panthers' offensive line's interesting too. I think they're going to be better. And I was talking about that during our fantasy football stream yesterday. So
only Justin would talk about the Panthers' offensive line
during a
improvements
fantasy
on
football stream. Yeah.
Yeah.
People were
Can you hear the
pooping on it.
clicks going away?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Saints win easily.
Saints win.
All right.
They have a great defense.
Bobby. We get so much great content from you guys on Talking Giants. I wanted to frame the Vikings-Giants question a little bit toward Minnesota. How worried are you that Sam Darnold will neuter Justin Jefferson the way that the Raiders quarterbacks did Devontae Adams in terms of like spicy play?
Not at all, because Jefferson had 32 catches, 476 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games with Nick Mullins at QB. That being said, it's week 1. Giants win, baby. Giants win. They might win by 77 points. That prediction hasn't came out yet, but they might win by 77 points.
Giants win.
I think the Giants win as well.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
not worried.
Let's go. Unbiased. This is the most
By the way,
biased show in
guess who I drafted in my fantasy league for you
Malik
guys?
Neighbors. That's
Malik
the only
Neighbors.
really someone that
Did I take him too early in like the 5th or 6th round?
Oh,
No,
no.
that's a good spot for
I think
him.
that's good value.
He got taken in the 4th round in mine because I think my league was like, we got to take him before Bobby takes him.
Yeah.
Which
I
I
forget if
kind
he
of
was-
have like a just stay away from Giants rule anyways for my fantasy football draft.
Yeah. Okay. Penik, Broncos, Seahawks. It's the neither team wanted Russell Wilson game. I'm kidding. They loved him in Seattle. Do you think Bo Nix will surprise us with a road win, or that Mike McDonald's new look defense will stick it to him in Seattle?
Yeah, Mike McDonald's new look defense, because I'll tell you what, they have talented players. I mean, I think we've been talking about this a lot, from the guys up front. There's multiple guys up front from the interior to the edge, especially to that secondary that has a lot of fun and interesting names there's names there, but we're just looking for them to go in the right direction. And I think Mike McDonald is a coach that has gotten his teams and his groups in the past to go in the right direction. You saw what he did with the Baltimore Ravens and guys having career years. And it kind of came out of nowhere, those guys having career years, versus this year. If Tariq Woolen gets back to what he was doing his rookie year, I don't think anybody's surprised. But his ceiling is so high. I think he's a superstar guy that can be a superstar in this league. So I think Mike McDonald's new look defense, even though it may take time, here's the only thing. It may take time for some of these defenses to stick. That's the talking point that everybody says every single year. I do think the Seattle's going to win this, and I think their defense looks good in the process too.
The man who will finish second in Coach of the Year to his former boss, Mike McDonald's going to shine. Seahawks win. They have good starters all across the board for the Seahawks.
I do think that Bo Nix will play fairly well because he did start half of his 187 career games in college in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm rooting for that part to happen, but I think Seattle wins. By the way, they go from having the oldest head coach in the NFL in Pete Carroll to the youngest in Mike McDonald. You want to ask me the last one, Penik?
Yes, I would.
Commanders at Bucks, pair of Heisman winners and Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield. Which one will we be talking about more on Monday, Chris Rose?
We'll be talking more about Jaden Daniels. Whether it's good or bad, I don't quite have the answer. I think we're going to see some fun stuff. He ran for more than 1,100 yards last year. I can't wait to see his arm downfield. I think he's going to give us some wow plays, but I do think that Tampa takes care of this. Washington feels a little messy right now. And so I think it's going to take some time for them to get straight, and I don't know if that'll happen. So I've got Tampa.
I got the Bucks too. I think we'll be talking about Jaden Daniels, whether it's good or bad. Why don't you give your prediction? Because I have one final question, Justin.
I've been going, I'm picking a little too many favorites, but I can't do the Commanders. I'm going Bucks.
I have one final question for you, Chris Rose.
Go ahead.
How the hell did we not figure out until so late that you were doing the damn Joey Chestnut versus Kobayashi thing? We did a whole segment on this about talking Giants in the summer. We're kind of the hot dog contest football show in the NFL. I was almost in the lemonade chugging contest.
I am a hot dog man.
Justin's gonna be in the event eventually. This was. I felt sorry for Kobayashi, because that was once him. How was it? And I'm jealous that I wasn't able to be there, even though I think Nathan's. Anyways, I won't disparage. But how was it?
Well, I apologize, guys. I didn't know that it meant that much to you, and I would have said something.
I follow
earlier.
Kobayashi on Instagram.
It means everything to us.
So I am sorry. If there is a part 2, whether it's stateside or in Japan, I will certainly let you know. So that's my fault.
Do you feel bad for Kobayashi?
So I did, but he also set a personal record, right? So it's almost like you can't play defense in that event. And Joey Chestnut was just an animal. I had no idea how much he sweats when he is doing, because it was actually a nice, cool temperature in there, and he was just putting on a show. It was seriously like watching Secretariat just pull away at the end.
Yeah, it's nuts, and they changed the rule where you're eating the dog with the bun. I thought that would decrease the numbers by a lot, and it didn't.
Oh, well, Tim Janis, Eater X, was all over it. All over it. I cannot believe. I don't know where they put
this was
these
our
things.
heyday. It was like when competitive eating was like a real thing and on ESPN2 all the time. This was like this was your heyday, Chris Rose.
Yeah.
This is it was kind of a flash. It was a blast from the past.
Well, I will say this: it was a blast working for Netflix. Like, they made it. I don't know. I think it popped on wherever you stream, but the set looked unreal. Like, it felt like a prize fight when those two walked out and the crowd erupted. I was like, holy shit, this is like some serious stuff. So it was a really, really fun time. I loved every bit of it, and hopefully we get to do it again. See some of that, but I apologize. That's my fault. I fucked
it up. It's okay. But yeah, it was it was kind of weird. It was like I've been waiting for this battle for 15 years, and then it was just like it's just over in 10 minutes. And
yeah,
he smoked him. Like he smoked him. And I feel bad for Kobayashi because he did essentially create the sport.
Totally
got it going, and then he just sees. And Kobayashi's very salty about how all things went down.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was just kind of a sore loser, which is understandable. But I felt bad for Kobayashi.
I did too. Guys, we are back at it. Are we going live on Mondays now?
No, we will not be.
Fucking no. Anyways,
we will not be live on Monday.
Okay.
So here's the JM football schedule. I kind of want to lay this out sometime this
Please.
weekend anyway. The JM football today schedule is we will be out on YouTube at about like 3:30 on Mondays. We will be live on Wednesday at 1 p.m. or noon or 1 p.m. for power rankings. And then Fridays, we will be live, not live, the video of our Thursday Night Football recap, and then Football Friday preview will be out at like 10 a.m. On YouTube as well. That's the plan this year for Football Today. 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Love it. Going to be busy. That's what makes it fun. Everybody enjoy your week 1, the rest of your week 1 schedule. For producer Mikey, Bobby Skinner, Justin Penik, I am Chris Rose. Thanks so much for tuning in to Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan's, the official rum of the NFL.